It's my shit right here. Say what, that's my shit right here. Welcome back to another episode of Road to William. Today's video, we're gonna focus on with Black people, specifically queer Black people, and intertwining that with mental health. Tap into this video I found. It's by PBS North Carolina. Black Issues Forum, LGBTQ acceptance in Black communities during Pride Month. So we're going to touch on that first. Not going to watch the whole video, just touching points.
Is huge. So that's a huge thing to be celebrating this month. Representative Alston, I'd like to enter a point of kind of assumed separation that's actually perhaps an area of intersection, race, gender, and sex. Some want to approach the struggle for civil rights by tackling one group at a time, women, then people of color, then people with non-mainstream sexual identity. How would you say these groups have been a part of the conversation historically?
I think they have. I think we've seen a really important partnership amongst those groups. I think you have before you, myself and Kendra, two Black women who are members of the LGBTQ community, and I know we live and fight for this work on behalf of really all marginalized people, and obviously in particular LGBTQ folks. And I think we all share the fact that whether it's through political decisions or cultural and systemic injustices, for all of the groups that you mentioned, this country has been organized to disadvantage all of us and to make us more vulnerable to things like violence and harassment and mistreatment, really across all systems in our lives. And I think what we can do now is, again, across all these groups, kind of bring all of our experiences and kind of join in the movement that I think we're all in, and that brings us that creates power. I think that's how we have historically engaged with each other, and how we will engage with each other in the future is to really bring all the power that comes from the struggles that we've encountered to move us forward.
Kendra, would you say that the LGBTQ community and Black communities in particular have been in sync in seeking liberties and civil rights from the beginning? Yeah, I would say absolutely that. I think Audre Lorde said it best when she said that there is no such thing as a single issue struggle, because we don't live single issue lives, right? And from the very beginnings of the civil rights movement for African Americans in this country, LGBTQ folks were there. As Bayard Rustin, who taught Dr. King civil disobedience and nonviolent approach. We had Lorraine Hansberry. We've had, multiple. We had James Baldwin. We've had so many people, and you cited Pauli Murray, right, who wrote the opinion that would lead to Brown versus the education and that ruling to end segregation. So I think in the past you hit it on the head. People wanted to make us line up and put things out front. So first we had to struggle as a Black people, and so people didn't bring their sexual orientation or gender identity to the fore. But I'm really grateful that we're in a moment where we're not segregating those things. And right now in this moment, the uprisings that we had, the three founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, two of them are queer women. And so these things are connected, and none of us are free until all of us are free. Absolutely. And I think it's interesting because it's been said, and many people know, that the leaders of the civil rights movement were not always welcoming of women. Right. And so that's why I wondered, how have individuals in the LGBTQ community been accepted and been a part, and a knowing part of the movement from the beginning? Yeah, I think they've been part of the movement, but I think that people were forced to put their other identities aside in order to work for this single issue. And I don't believe that that serves us. I think we all have to be able to bring our whole selves to the table. And that's in part is why our organization adopted a racial equity lens, because we know that we cannot do the work of LGBTQ equality if we do not factor in how race plays how it impacts our realities as we try and access systems. So we know that Black trans women in particular are amongst the most marginalized and the most subject to violence and murder. Just last year, Charlotte became the second most dangerous city in the country for Black trans women because of the murders that we've had there. And that's a harrowing statistic, and we can frankly do better. So we should not see these things as separate. We need to be working collectively because our opposition is targeting all of us. And speaking of trans women, we know that recently comedian Dave Chappelle caught heat for his show talking about the transgender community. In his Netflix specials called The Closer, he said that gay people are minorities until they need to be white again. And he said, I have never had a problem with transgender people. My problem has always been with white people. And one of the points that he seemed to be trying to make was that there's racism within the LGBTQ community, that LGBTQ social progress has benefited the white LGBTQ community, but not extended to Blacks in the community. And that was problematic. What do you think about what he was saying, Kendra? Yeah, so the two things. Dave Chappelle is, a very wealthy individual who is not part of the LGBTQ community, and he should focus his jokes on something else. That's my personal opinion. I just lifted up the statistic of the reality of Black trans women. There are areas that he has made incredible social commentary. This is not an area that he should wade into. And his comments contribute to the hate and marginalization of trans people, and it's deeply problematic. Secondly, of course, there is racism in the LGBTQ community because no one is just LGBTQ. I am LGBTQ. I'm a Black woman. I experience racism from white LGBTQ folks. That's a reality. And there's so many fallacies to his argument. Like, for example, that gay folks can suddenly become white again. I would have never been white. I'll never be white. And I'm a queer person. So this is an assumption that LGBTQ issues are only white issues. And I think that we've had organizations and representation in the media lifting up the issues that mostly impact white LGBTQ folks, but that does not mean that the community is monolithic and that these are not issues that are Black or brown or women's issues or reproductive issues or immigration issues. It's all interconnected. And he should talk about things that he knows and understands. No one would tolerate Dave Chappelle talking about women or a white comic talking about Black issues. So why are we tolerating someone who is not from the community talking about LGBTQ issues? So stay in your lane, Dave. Yeah, stay in your lane, Dave. Use your platform for some good about something that you actually know and understand. Representative Alston, did you want to comment on it as well?
Sure. Well, excuse me, I really couldn't put it better. I think the only thing I'll just emphasize is that, sure, racism is everywhere and we encounter it. And I think, to Kendra's point, those kinds of comments put particularly Black transgender women in danger. They also just contribute to, I think, the kind of isolation I think that Black LGBTQ folks can experience and feel. And so it's to Kendra's point, Dave Chappelle should absolutely stay in his lane. But I couldn't have said it better. I appreciate Kendra's comments.
Well, even with some of the political gains that have been made in recent years, it seems that we are witnessing a resurgence in activities that reflect intolerance and opposition to LGBTQ communities and culture. For example, earlier this month, a U-Haul truck full of white nationalists was detained and 31 men were arrested for conspiracy to riot at a pride event in Idaho. And another is the conversation and move to ban certain literature from public school libraries. And some of this is in the name of protesting critical race theory, which is also interesting. So, Representative Alston, how concerning are these incidents in light of the overall progress that's been made?
They're incredibly concerning. I think they speak politically to a very dangerous playbook that particularly the Republican Party just nationwide is undertaking to attack LGBTQ folks, to attack particularly our transgender community, and to use them as a political weapon that's putting the entire community in danger. And so it's deeply troubling. We have to do everything that we can to fight back. I think, and also, in anticipation of potentially a Supreme Court decision that addresses Roe versus Wade, I think we could potentially see future. I think it could open the door to folks taking opportunities to chip away at other civil rights. Including those that protect the LGBTQ community. And so I think those kinds of political assaults are incredibly dangerous, and we have to stay hyper vigilant. I know we are doing our best here in the North Carolina legislature to protect the LGBTQ community, to kind of educate people on the fact that people in North Carolina want LGBTQ folks to be treated fairly. They want non-discrimination protection. They want these things. What we're seeing from the right wing is not representative of what people want and how people should be treated.
That's an interesting point you make about the upcoming Roe v. Wade decision and how it can impact other civil rights. And I think that people really need to be attuned to that as it pertains to the protections and rights of anyone in any space, education included. So that we could definitely go that way. Kendra, what are your thoughts on what's happening, say, with our schools, with the efforts to remove certain literature from the shelves?
Yeah, I'm going to want to touch on that, but I do want to just highlight that in addition to what happened in Idaho, we had the Proud Boys go to a library pride event just 2 days ago. So this is deeply problematic. It is not an isolated incident. We had an insurrectionist come and film at Apex Pride.
So there's like this feeling of freedom, like this is going to be okay. This sort of feeling that we're going to get away with it. I think that's the danger.
Yeah, that's the danger. And the same people who were at the Capitol, during the insurrection are targeting our community with intimidation. So that's what is entirely scary. We're in a new moment. I think it feels as if the community is being targeted in a particular way that will escalate the violence, which is what we saw with the Asian American community after the rhetoric around the coronavirus, as well as some immigrant communities when there was the Build the Wall rhetoric. And now this rhetoric is laser focused on the LGBTQ community during Pride Month, and it's deeply problematic. We're seeing Proud Boys go to book readings. So all of this is connected. With regard to the schools, all of this is interconnected as well. We know that critical race theory was not being taught in schools. That is a legal theory. They created a boogeyman in order, in my opinion, frankly, in response to the uprisings. So one moment we had Black Lives Matter on Amazon Prime. The next minute they are wiping out books like The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and they're targeting LGBTQ topics.
And somewhat in the name of just doing what they did. Well, during the time of the protests following George Floyd's murder, there were the protests and there was violence and there was destruction. And so that episode has been used as an excuse to say, well, they did it. And so we're going to go and exercise our rights. And if, there's violence as a part of that, it was acceptable there, but it really wasn't acceptable. And it was made, the people who did something were made accountable. There were arrests and people have been punished. But it just still seems like there's a feeling out there that it's okay, that I'm going to be excused, and that, this is the moment. Well, let me ask this. What is the value, you think? Let me pull Representative Alston in here. What is the value of having literature in schools that speaks to some harsh realities and also some non-mainstream realities? You know, some parents would say, well, I don't want talking about lynching in school. I don't, because my child is not ready for that. My sixth grader is not ready for that. And then they'll kind of tie that to other uncomfortable content. What's the risk of not having that there, though?
Well, I think the risk of not having that is our kids don't learn the truth, and they deserve to learn the truth. They deserve to learn all of our history, and frankly, you know, those decisions about curriculum, about what books should be in libraries and classrooms, are decisions that should be made by educators and not by folks of the General Assembly, not by politicians. And I think the danger that we see is that kids are going to learn less. Their critical thinking skills won't develop the way that they should. They'll be less tolerant and accepting of their peers. They'll know less about themselves. Particularly LGBTQ kids will continue to be, you know, disproportionately harassed and subjected to violence in their schools without the support that this kind of content and the teachers to the educated teachers who have the resources to help protect them. Yeah, that's what's at risk. And politicians inserting themselves into this equation is incredibly disruptive and incredibly dangerous. So.
Kendra, is there any work that Equality NC is doing in this space to try to advocate for certain kinds of literature in public schools and for certain kinds of content to be taught in the history courses?
So our work is primarily around training and education. And when these books were targeted, we organized with some of the librarians because, you know, most of the book bans have actually happened at public libraries, which is not inside of schools. We try and create a situation where every student can see themselves reflected, and representation matters. So we need to talk about Black history because we have Black students in the classroom. We need to talk about queer history because we have queer students in the classroom. We need to talk about immigration, Native history, all of those different things, because classrooms are not monolithic, and our history should reflect the people who are absorbing it, who are studying, who are trying to understand how this country came to be so that we can do better. And we've been through the road of total exclusion of folks. There was a time when Black people were not quote unquote mainstream. And we need to have better and proper representation so we don't repeat these mistakes that we have done in our history.
Agreed. Everyone deserves to be represented and learned about. For the second week now, there have been hearings on the investigation on the January 6th attack. Most recently, testimony by poll workers was shared and revealing even more about how much of an organized effort there was leading up to, during, and following January 6th, 2021. Representative Alston, what are your thoughts about these hearings?
So far, I mean, I think that what we've learned through those hearings has been shocking, and also just affirms what I feel like we knew, and that's that the folks that went to the Capitol went there, conspired to be there to undermine our election and to undermine our democracy, and that President Trump had a hand in that from the beginning. I think it's devastating, and I hope that there are real consequences at some point at the end of this process for the folks who were involved, including President Trump. And yeah, I hope this is a real bellwether moment for our country, and that, you know, we saw the worst, and that we are, regardless of your political ideology, that we are headed towards, you know, a day and a time where we are more stable as a democracy.
All right, yeah, go check out their video. I'll link them in the description. I wanted to segue quick into, we still have to take care of ourselves mentally, and that what helps with that is motivating. Yeah, we're about to do that. Then we're gonna head out. It's a short vid, but I wanted to make sure I'm dropping daily some knowledge for y'all. You already know. Let's go.
Shola, it is World Mental
Carson normally would be here.
Yes. Yeah, but you know what? We usually do Pop Start, but today is different. It is special. It is World Mental Health Day. It's a time to raise awareness and also find solutions.
And Carson is helping to do just that. He's on the board of directors of Project Healthy Minds. He's at Hudson Yards this morning here in New York, the third annual World Mental Health Day Festival. Carson, good morning to you. I know how important this issue is to you, and how have you seen the conversation change?
Well, guys, it happened on the Today Show when I just was talking to Craig asked me when we were running a piece on mental health, and I told my whole story about being diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder, and it just opened up this big conversation and this advocacy work that I've been doing. I joined Project Healthy Minds. They have the twin goals of trying to help break the stigma of mental health, but also create basically like an Expedia or Grubhub for mental health services, which in today's day and age we should have. 65 million Americans are going to have a mental health crisis next year. Only 60% of them will ever get help. So there's a lot of work to be done. Today, days like today, the festival, there's runs and all sorts of fun stuff. Thought leaders and other advocates from all over the country are getting together. And I'm going to be doing a breakout conversation with Demi Lovato and filmmaker Michael Ratner, talking about mental health in Hollywood and all the work that they've done. And tonight, there's a big gala. Savannah, you're nice enough to be involved with that. I'm going to give a Trailblazer Award to Chance the Rapper, my friend, who's done so much work in the mental health space in and around the Chicago community. There's a lot of people suffering in silence. I know for decades I was one of them, and it's a really important topic. And so I should bring in my friend, actress Sanaa Lathan, who's also here. Hi, Sanaa. Good to see you.
So good to see you.
What are you going to be doing today as a part of this?
So I'm here to support Project Healthy Minds. I too struggled with severe anxiety and depression at one time, and through therapy and meditation, breath work, all kinds of practices, I was able to get that under control. And so today I'm teaching a group of people some breath work and taking them through with my cousin, who's a certified hypnotherapist, a hypnotherapy session.
Yeah, let's go through. I wanted people at home to have one little takeaway. What is the breath work you're going to do? Let's do it together.
Oh, okay.
What can they do?
Okay, it's called the physiological sigh.
Okay.
Very simple. It immediately lowers anxiety and stress in the brain.
Okay.
So you take one inhale.
All right, guys, you got to do this.
You got to do it with me.
Very easy.
You take one deep inhale through your nose, and then at the top of that inhale, you take one more, and then you hold it, and then you sigh out. So it's going to look like this.
Ready? So you inhale till you think you're done, then you find a little bit more room.
Exactly, and then you sigh out.
What does that do to the body?
It immediately lowers the stress response in the brain, and I do it all the time. I'll do it if I'm feeling nervous about any kind of thing that I'm about to do. You can do it over and over again. You can do it up to 5 minutes, and it's really cool because you can do it around people and people don't even know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You're the best. Thank you so much. You're guys here to see World Mental Health Day. We have a lot to get to today and tonight. Thanks for the air.
I heard it. Sanaa, do some breath work, therapy, meditation, some good advice. I always say try and sit out in the sun if you can. Be outside at some point in the day to revamp yourself, revamp your mind. Quick video. Make sure you hit that like button. I will say with that first video, but there's still gems, there's still things that they say that you can do. Be sure to hit that like button, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you felt about the video. Yes, my shit right here. So I just smash it right now.